Each week, Sky News speaks to hundreds of people, prime ministers, royalty, celebrities, sporting stars. We also speak to ordinary people with extraordinary tales to tell. Here are just some of the stories that they've told us over the last year.
When we arrived at a huge refugee camp in northern Syria, the staff couldn't locate Shamima Begum, the British teenager who joined IS in 2015. But we found her, quite by chance, in a porter cabin after she had given birth. And she agreed to do an interview. So here it is, a challenging conversation that would make headlines around the world.
What was it about Islamic State that attracted you? What did you like about it?
The way they showed how you can go, they'll take care of you, you can have your own family there, you can do anything. You're living under Islamic law.
Did you know what Islamic State were doing when you left for Syria? Because they had beheaded people, there were executions.
Yeah, I knew about those things, and I was okay with it at first because, you know, I started becoming religious just before I left. And, you know, from what I heard, that Islamically that is all allowed, so I was okay with it.
The head of the Foreign Intelligence Services in the UK says people like you are potentially very dangerous. What would you say to him?
They don't have any evidence against me doing anything dangerous. When I went to Syria, I was just a housewife the entire 4 years. Stayed at home, took care of my husband, took care of my kids. I never did anything dangerous. I never made propaganda. I never encouraged people to come to Syria, so.
Do you feel that you have made a mistake in coming here, living under Islamic State?
In a way, yes, but I don't regret it because it's changed me as a person. It's made me stronger, tougher. You know, I married my husband. I wouldn't have found someone like him back in the UK. I had my kids. You know, I did have a good time there. It's just at the end things got harder and I couldn't take it anymore.
In a Kurdish-run jail in northern Syria, the young Muslim convert nicknamed JIHADI Jack gave his first interview since his parents back home in Oxford were convicted of funding terrorism by sending him money. Our questions were put to Jack Letts by a local journalist.
Two 60-year-old atheists being convicted for Islamic terrorism doesn't really make much sense. I feel guilty for what I put them through. That being said, they didn't actually do anything wrong. They sent me money to leave, etc. And they didn't actually, it's not like they were actually funding some sort of terrorist activities. I really want to see them any more than I've ever wanted to see them in my whole life. Really. Being more than 2 years not being able to hear like I said, my mother's voice is sort of a big deal for us. Really. We were a very close family, and my mum was my best friend.
Jack Letts was only a schoolboy when he left home in May 2014. He said he wanted to learn Arabic in Jordan. 4 months later, he called his mother to say that he was in Syria.
I wanted to fight the regime. Like again, I never fought anyone except for the regime.
He says he became disillusioned when he was out there.
I left at a time when ISIS wasn't actually falling in on itself. I left because I opposed them. I genuinely opposed them. I was put in prison 3 times by ISIS. And then escaped from them, if that makes sense. Being against the regime, I think, is a good thing, but I definitely was with the wrong people. And that's something I learned a long time ago.
Now, Letts is asking to come home.
I know it seems a bit far-fetched at the moment, but I'd love to go home. Britain's my home. Of course I'd want to go home. The British people, like I said, they're my people, but I'm not sure they'd agree with that. But, yeah. I have no intention of blowing them up. That's probably important.
There is growing political pressure tonight for the government to press the United States over the case of an American woman who claimed diplomatic immunity after being involved in an accident in which a 19-year-old man died.
Their son was killed when he was hit by a car believed to have been driven by the wife of an American diplomat, Ansa Koulis, who has since claimed diplomatic immunity.
We just don't understand from one human to another and one mum to another how you could just get on a plane and leave behind the devastation that she has.
If she doesn't come back, Harry's parents may be able to sue her in the US.
We were sincerely hoping as parents that she'd have enough heart to be able to come forward.
And we still do, don't we?
We still do hope that's the case.
Yeah.
But if it's not, then yeah, we will pursue.
The Foreign Secretary had asked the US to do the right thing. Harry's family just want to know what happened. They entered the Foreign Office craving action. After a 45-minute meeting, there was nothing new.
Everybody else in the world can see what she's done is wrong. Why can't they see that? I feel like I'm being an idiot because I can see it. We can all see it. Why can't the two most powerful men in the whatever, why can't they see it?
Sally Challen met her husband Richard when she was just 15. They married, had 2 sons and were together 40 years. To the outside world, a happy family. But what people didn't see was that Sally was a victim of sustained psychological abuse, a crime now recognised as coercive control.
Mental abuse is the most difficult thing to explain to people. I think that over the years, mine was like a drip feed coming at me, and it came to a crescendo at the end. It's something that makes you question your own mind.
And in August 2010, after suspecting Richard of yet another affair, she snapped.
I gave him his food and I said to him, am I going to see you tomorrow? And he said, don't question me, don't question me. And I grabbed a hammer that was in my bag and hit him. They say I hit him 18 times. I can't think that I could possibly have been capable of doing something. Something just snapped inside me. By the time my trial had come up, I dropped considerably mentally, and it was just a blur. All I can really remember is being asked questions and answering, I suppose so, I suppose so. I think the main thing that I remember is my eldest son screaming at my sentence. I thought I'd die in prison. I didn't think there was any hope.
But hope came when coercive control was made a crime while Sally was behind bars. It allowed her lawyers to fight to change her case to manslaughter, ultimately leading to her release.
It was surreal, really, walking out of there. But I want to help those that are still there, who shouldn't be there. They need a voice, and I think I have to be that voice for them. It was right that I went to prison, but I think the charge and the conviction was wrong. Now that I say that I've come out the other side, I want to help other people fight for justice.
Almost 300 climate change activists have been arrested in a second day of protests in central London. The tactics of defiance and direct action are aimed at getting maximum publicity for their cause.
The point of it is to keep this lorry here, because if we keep the lorry here, then we keep the road, and if we keep the road, then we cause the disruption that we need to create. None of us really want to be creating disruption, but we're being forced to do that because we've been completely ignored for the past 30 years on what is now the most unprecedentedly broad and deep emergency crisis that humans have ever seen. And we're basically committing suicide by not approaching it with a sensible management head. So that's what we want to see from our government, and we're forcing the government to come to the table about it, and that's what this is about. And I'd love to be able to do that with petitions, and I'd love to be able to do that with a march, but unfortunately those haven't worked. So here I am, locked to a lorry for 10 hours. This is the first time I've done this, so it was really cold. We're in the middle of Waterloo Bridge, so as you can imagine, the wind is going past. But everyone's been really kind, and they've given us lots of food and drink and blankets and things. And it's also a bit emotionally scary, because you know that you might get arrested and you don't know what that's going to be like necessarily. But overall, there's a lot of support here, and I just hope that people understand that we're doing this for everyone, and it's not just for us. It's not about trying to get attention. We don't really want to be here. We're doing it for everyone's security.
Greta Thunberg is one of the world's most famous climate activists. At just 16, she's become the face of a global movement, inspiring millions of children around the world to strike from school.
When you look around the world, there are some countries that are taking action. The UK, for example, is committed to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Is that progress for you?
That depends on what you define as progress. If they are to follow their carbon budgets to be in line with the Paris Agreement, to say below the 1.5 degrees of warming of pre-industrial levels, then I mean, I sometimes wonder, do they have like a secret carbon budget that we don't know about? Because they are being very proud of what they have accomplished. But I mean, that is not nearly enough if they are to do their part.
What do you think it was about the school strike and that idea that caught the imaginations of so many people?
It was just after a very hot summer with lots of wildfires and droughts and extreme weather in Sweden. So many people were worried about and concerned about the climate, like, oh, maybe this is serious. Also because it is children, it is young people who are saying these things, that are saying like, you are stealing our future, why should we care about our future, educating ourselves if you don't care about our future? And I think that is a very powerful message. And many people feel guilty when children say that.
This week, more evidence has emerged about a drug called PRIMODOS and its link to potential birth defects. It was given to women in the 1960s and 70s as a pregnancy test, and the manufacturer has always denied the link. We produced a documentary about this drug back in 2017, and since then a lot more victims have come forward. One of them I met earlier this week, called Linda Phillips.
When I saw your documentary, it described how women went to their doctors and they were given 2 tablets, which was exactly what happened to me. I never put the connection together until I saw that. I had a child that was stillborn and the top of her head was missing. The top of her brain was missing. And they told me that there was no reason why. It was one of those things that it would probably never happen again. Go home, try again. They took the child away at the delivery. I never saw her. I don't know what they did with her. I still don't know to this day where she is.
In social situation, it's almost as though I'm not there.
Your very bright, funny sense of humour, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's just people don't take the time to work that out.
No. I think it when they don't can't understand what I'm saying at times, and it's quite lonely. I'm on my own, and I've never met anybody I have a relationship with, never married, had children. I often wonder what, if it hadn't been for PRIMODOS, well, I'd be a grandmother by now. I was not quite pretty.
Really just want the same things as everyone else, and it's about equality, not difference.
Freddie McConnell is one of only a handful of men to have carried and delivered his own baby. While it may seem strange to some, to Freddie it should be a choice accessible to many more trans people. He spoke to Sky News about the experience.
I didn't ever get sort of recognised as a trans man who was carrying his own baby, who was pregnant. It's amazing, actually. People just thought I was a man with a beer belly.
He was initially told testosterone would make him infertile. It didn't, and now he's fighting what he calls dangerous misinformation.
In some countries around the world, trans people are obliged to undergo sterilisation in order to access transition. But by sort of paying such little attention to trans people's wishes to start families and have full lives, and not just the lives that they dictate through this kind of narrow sense of what it is to transition, it is de facto sterilisation.
Have you come across people who say, oh, he just wants to have his cake and eat it, and how have you responded to those people?
Yeah, I find that a really strange idea. I guess I would ask people to ask themselves whether they want kids, whether they want a family. Like, if they don't, fair enough. If they do, then maybe we're not that different.
Dave Merritt was pulling his car into the garage when he saw his wife crying and knew something was wrong. She'd just found out that their son had been caught up in the London Bridge terror attack. Tonight he speaks for the first time since his son's death and has tough words for how the Prime Minister responded in the immediate aftermath.
I had seen reports on Twitter from about 2 o'clock that day that there'd been an incident at London Bridge. I didn't know Jack was at London Bridge that day. When I got home, my wife was driving my car into the drive, which seemed a bit odd, and she was just beside herself, saying, we've got to go to London, we've got to go to London. And I said, why have we got to go to London? And she said, because Jack has been involved in this incident at London Bridge. We got to London, we got a taxi, went to the Royal London Hospital and waited. And then we were told at about 11:15 that they'd confirmed that he had been killed. So that was how we found out.
The pain of losing his son compounded in the days that followed by what Dave sees as the exploitation of Jack's death for political gain.
Immediately people start jumping on the criminal justice bandwagon, so, you know, advocating longer sentences and harsher penalties. You know, I spoke to Jack in a lot of detail about his work, and I knew how passionate he was about rehabilitation and helping people to redeem themselves. Instead of seeing a tragedy, Boris Johnson saw an opportunity and he went on the offensive. It was important that somebody said something, and that just happened to be me, and obviously my son's been killed. People are going to listen to me.
Well, it's certainly been a big year in politics, but still no Brexit. Instead, we had a general election. 3 years after the historic referendum vote to leave, Sky News spoke to the man who put it in motion, the former Prime Minister David Cameron.
He's been hiding away from the political spotlight for 3 years, but this week David Cameron burst back onto the scene with the release of his memoirs. So I sat down with him to reflect on his time as Prime Minister. You're a student of history. Does it pain you that you'll go down in history as the man who put Brexit in motion?
Well, it pains me what I see has happened since, because we've had 3 years of a hiatus. We seem stuck. Now, to be fair to Theresa May, she produced a deal for us to leave the EU, and I think it was wrong for the people who most wanted Brexit to reject that deal, which is why we are where we are. But as I try and explain in the book, that I believed our position in the EU was becoming unsafe and unstable, particularly after the treaty veto in 2011, where we had genuine concerns, but the EU just pushed ahead and had a treaty anyway, same people, same offices, same tables, same chairs, and it showed they could do things without unanimity. We needed to fix that, and that is where the renegotiation and the referendum came from, and I believe they were inevitable.
Well, let's talk about your record in government then, because for many people your government was symbolic of austerity. Between 2010 and 2016 the number of people sleeping rough doubled, food bank usage went up. I mean, you were talking about compassionate conservatism. Is that the record of compassionate conservatism?
Well, the record of the government is that we cut the budget deficit by 2/3, we created 2.5 million jobs, there were 1 million more businesses, we became the fastest growing economy in the G7, inequality fell, the number of people in poverty fell, the number of households where no one worked fell massively, and we ended up with an economy with more people in work than at any time in our history. I've been quiet for the last 3 years, but it's sometimes driven me mad to hear that somehow austerity was a political choice, that there were other alternatives. We faced a clear and present danger of having such a massive budget deficit. We had to sort that out.
You've been in the background, shall we say, for a couple of years now, and have now burst back onto the political scene, doing a lot of interviews. Looking forward to going back to the Shepherd's Hut, having a bit of a quiet life?
I was very lucky when I first became Tory leader. Every single previous Tory leader was on my side, briefly. I mean, Margaret Thatcher, John Major, Michael Howard, Ian Duncan Smith, William Hague, and it gives you an enormous ability and strength to get on with the job. So I will try not to be what Linton Crosby used to call Connie the commentator. But from time to time, I'm sure I'll have something to say. But I'm looking forward, I wanted to, say my piece about the book and let people read it and judge it for themselves. But I promise this Cam Fest is coming to an end.
We just about see the gates of Downing Street behind me. Now, earlier, Whitehall was packed, Parliament Square was packed, it was all very noisy, and I'm delighted to say some of the diehards are still here. Why have you come here tonight?
In the past years that this has been going on, I've not had a voice, so this is my opportunity to get my voice heard and to get it out there that I'm not happy with this, and I'm not happy.
Voice, but I'm Portuguese, and I worked here for 20 years, and I have no voice, and the resettlement scheme is not working, all right?
Have you been joining the protest today?
Yes, I have. Finally I have, because I need a voice. I worked and I gave this country my youth. I'm very grateful for what you taught me, but you must make me part of all this process.
Yeah,
I can't
absolutely.
just be kicked out. I built things for you. I looked after your children. I looked after the elderly in this country. Now you kick me out with what? With what? I am very, very hurt by what they've done to England, because I came here and I joined the working force, and I'm very proud of it. So I'm very angry at them for doing this country.
Look who I found. Stanley Johnson. No, you're alive.
Go on. Hello.
How are
Hello.
you?
I'm fine.
You just arrived.
Just got off the train.
Right.
Wonderful to be back in Manchester.
What are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking that this is the moment when we're all going to, crack it.
Yeah?
It's going to be a fine event. And I noticed as I walked through the streets to get everybody saying, well, hi, well done. So
Yeah.
I'm very pleased to be here.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. It's a bit of a challenge for your little boy.
Yes, but that's what little boys are for, isn't it? I mean, they have to get through life's challenges. It's prep school, it's public school, it's university. It's the first step in the run, and then there's the big step. And I think he's going to handle it absolutely fine.
Kids are not necessarily getting on, though, are they?
As far as I'm concerned, our family is united. United. We all think what we think, and we know that whatever happens...
What will Christmas look like?
Christmas is going to be fine.
So perhaps we could just go back very quickly to asking about whether Boris giving an American businesswoman cash while he was mayor of London, and whether that was appropriate or not. What do you think?
Tony, get rid of this lady, would you?
He doesn't mean to get... He asked if you'd like to say
Tony
Tony
is one of our toughies.
Okay.
He knows how to deal with this.
Don't dash away because we've got your bag. You've got me.
Sky News has travelled far and wide over the past 12 months to bring you the stories that matter, from natural disasters to terrorist attacks, mass protests to moments in history. Here are just a few.
The terrible fire at Notre-Dame saw hundreds of years of history disintegrate in minutes. I was there among the crowds gathering and looking on as the blaze began to take hold. We tried to capture the emotions of France as a building that embodies its spirit like no other looked close to being lost. That night was the start of a week of deep sadness, reflection, but also a determination to rebuild.
Agnes Poirier is Paris born and bred, and Notre-Dame has been a constant in her lifetime. She was mesmerised by what she witnessed overnight and terrified she would wake to Paris without its much-loved cathedral.
A lot of people through the night came there. There was nothing they could do, but they were there. Some of them, were quietly praying, or even I could hear some singing, and some people were just staring and hoping also that firemen, they were applauded throughout the night. I could hear it. So sort of the community gathering, and I'm hoping that the worst can be prevented.
British journalist Robert Hardman made it inside Notre Dame last night as the battle to save the cathedral was underway. The photos he took show the damage unfolding around him.
There was 2 or 3 inches of water on the floor, terrible smell, really hits the back of your throat, really strong smell. And yet through the clouds of water still coming down from above, from the firemen's hoses and the flames and everything else, suddenly this fireman's torch picked out this extraordinary image at the far end, and there was a crucifix, a cross, the gold cross as it's known, still on the altar. It somehow stayed standing, and I think it just, this morning, it's a very powerful image for a lot of people in France. We're in Holy Week. This is one of the most sacred spots in France, and I think many people see perhaps some sort of divine intervention.
Hundreds dead, hundreds more injured. Churches and hotels targeted in one of the worst terror attacks of recent times. I spoke to Mark Campbell, whose mother Lorraine died in the Sri Lanka attacks.
So the day of the bombings, her husband Neil, he rang me to let me know that it was her hotel, and that he'd been texting her when she was in the restaurant having breakfast, waiting for Juno, the other person that was with her, lost his life. And I guess we kind of knew. No one could have predicted what happened, but the side I'll take from it is, it's one of them things. She had this saying, when it's your time, it's your time. It's not really decided by us. I guess it was her time.
Teenagers Amelie and Danny Lindsay were among the Britons killed in the attacks. They were on the last day of a holiday to Sri Lanka with their father, who was not seriously injured. I spoke to their brother David.
As they were running, they were caught in the second explosion by the accident. I think my dad had literally been a couple metres behind my sister and my brother, and just from the way that the blast fell, he survived almost untouched. He has a few cuts on his face, and he's obviously extremely shaken and distraught. She was really the glue that held the family together, and all of us we still have like an indescribable bond with her, and she's left unimaginably big shoes to fill and remember, and it'd be very hard to continue without her. Really what he loved is getting out of his comfort zone, meeting people no matter what their background, where they were from. He would befriend everyone, and everyone he met always loved him. He was such a pure soul.
They're some of the biggest protests Hong Kong has ever seen. Hundreds of thousands of demonstrators on the streets, angry at plans to change extradition laws. I questioned pro-democracy activist Joshua Wong shortly after he was freed from prison.
What we ask for is when 2 million people come to join the rally, KLM should take a lesson to learn what's meant by respect. What we ask for is not only suspend the bill or pause the legislation process. We are not sure when will the puppet of communist regime, chief executive, to reactivate the bill in the future. That's why what we ask for is withdrawal.
We've seen a lot of protests, peaceful protests with millions on the street. We've also seen violent protests. What's the next step for you now if you don't think she's listening?
Now the movement is more organic, self-initiative, decentralized, and also showing the power and determination of people. I hope people could aware that if the government ignore our voice, in the next 1 to 2 weeks, more action, demonstration, massive mobilization will happen. It's not mobilized by any leader from the Democratic camp, it's just mobilized by Carrie Lam.
These shantytowns never stood a chance against the most powerful hurricane the Bahamas has ever experienced.
The Bahamian Prime Minister said his islands were at war with Hurricane Dorian, and looking down here, that was no exaggeration. They have been ravaged.
Small sailboats were no match for this monster. Even large vessels were rendered flimsy in the face of gusts exceeding 200 miles per hour.
So we're on the ground here in one of the worst affected areas. This was the harbour, completely obliterated, palm trees obviously completely flattened. The boats themselves lifted clean out of the water onto the land. What was it like during the hurricane?
Total terrifying. My family here almost drowned. They had this much water left before it hit the ceiling. We held the door closed for 2 hours so we wouldn't get blown out.
I've been in my house like 30 years.
30 years. And you watched it
Yeah.
disappear?
Yeah, when I look up again, I look right up in the sky. The roof was gone. So
But you're here and you're smiling and you're safe.
Girl, you gotta give God thanks. God is good.
Somebody home?
How are you?
Upbeat, even if seemingly under siege. A whistleblower claims Rudy Giuliani was part of a push to get Ukraine to dig for dirt on Joe Biden. But he says he did nothing wrong, and the State Department knew exactly what he was doing.
The State Department asked me to help them deal with the Ukrainian government with regard to meetings with President Trump. The State Department doesn't investigate crime. I was asked to do this by the State Department. I didn't know Mr. Yermak from a hole in the wall. The name of Yermak was given to me by Kurt Vogel, ambassador. I was asked to meet with him. I did meet with him. I briefed them, two of them, on everything I did, and I have a very nice text at the end explaining how honest and straightforward I was, which I am.
You don't have any issue with a foreign power investigating a political rival of the president?
I do if he didn't do anything, but if he bribed the president of that country, I have an issue if they don't investigate.
At the heart of this, we know, is a whistleblower who alleges that the president tried to interfere with the 2020 election and that the White House covered it up. Do you, in principle, regard both of those things as potentially serious offences?
So here's what he says. Here's what he says. I am deeply concerned. I was told, I heard, based on my understanding, I learned, I do not know. You know the word that isn't here, the verb that isn't here? No. There's no place here, I know. He's not a witness to anything. He heard gossip. He's telling you what other people said to him, most of which, when you look at the recording, turn out to be wrong.
Are you at all concerned about your future? Because you have been placed as a central role in this.
No, I'm not concerned about my future. What I did is perfectly lawful, perfectly legal. You're asking me about the process that I followed to uncover one of the biggest scandals. I should be considered a whistleblower. I should be getting whistleblower protection. I actually found facts that are true. The other guy, half of what he wrote is false.
"2019 has been a memorable year of sport. England's cricketers were crowned world champions in dramatic style at Lord's, while it was nearly, but not quite, for the Lionesses and for the men's rugby team at their respective World Cups. Away from the pitch, Lewis Hamilton secured his 6th Formula One world title, Anthony Joshua reclaimed his heavyweight belts, and Dina Asher-Smith became the first British woman to win a major global sprint title.
There'll be so much focus on you building up to Japan. How do you deal with that? A lot of pressure now.
I just keep going like normal, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I think I'm getting a bit more comfortable with
there being more attention, I think. If you asked me a few years ago or even last year, I would have been like, oh no, please, just don't look at me, kind of. And I'm still a bit like that, don't get me wrong, but I think I've kind of interpreted it as people want you to do well and people are hoping that you do well, which is absolutely lovely. Obviously, people's hopes and aspirations are completely distinct from the hard work that I still need to do, and it's distinct from what actually might happen on track, because you've still got to put in the work to be successful. But it's just well wishes, and it's really nice that so many people want me to do well.
What does the build-up then look like to Tokyo? So between now and then training.
Loads of hard work. Training, I'll probably start racing at about May, June time, which I'm not completely sure about, but definitely making sure that we're at the Milan Anniversary Games in the summer, which I'm so excited for, because that will be actually the first opportunity that I'm able to stand in front of a British crowd as a world champion, which is a crazy thought, but yeah.
What's your dream when you think through, forward to July, to the Olympics?
Yeah.
Can you allow yourself to think about collecting?
Oh no, we don't think about that, simply because I have to train so hard to get there, and then I have to race, I have to make the team, and I have to get there injury free. So there are quite a few small but significant hurdles that you have to overcome before you can even think about the Olympics. And even when you do, you don't start thinking about the result afterwards, when you've got to do the races first. So.
He's got it! England have won the World Cup by the barest of margins!
This is an historic moment for England. Quite extraordinary scenes here. England have won the World Cup at the 12th time of trying.
The World Cup is coming home. It might not be football.
Come on, England!
It's just amazing. For England's cricketers, this is the day, this is the moment, this is history.
The morning after England's historic and improbable World Cup win, thousands of fans gathered at the Oval to meet and congratulate the conquering team. I spoke to England's batsman, Joe Root.
4 years of hard work. After coming off the back of a very difficult World Cup in Australia, everything that we've been through on this journey together as a team, we've had some wonderful times on the field. We've grown close together off the field
Classic
as well.
Yorkshire player of thinking back to the bad times. Today's the day to smile.
That's what I mean, is you've been through it all. We've experienced it all, and now we get to enjoy yesterday for what it was. It's brilliant. We obviously have a duty of care to look after the game, leave it in a better place, and hopefully inspire the next generation to go on and do things.
We played extremely well, Butler and Stokes, the partnership they put on to get us back into the game. That doesn't happen by mistake. That happens by a lot of hard work away from the game, and a lot of confidence. The whole team has been part of 4 years of planning, and it's really a culmination of those 4 years. And you see these young guys here now in their mid-20s that with a smile on their face, and if you see have a look at some of the photos in the paper this morning, they could be 14 years old, 7 years old, playing with their mates in the backyard, and that's the best thing about the game of cricket.
1:59:36 for a marathon. He has done it. Eliud Kipchoge of Kenya. He has done it. Oh my God! I don't know what to say. He has done it. Eliud Kipchoge of Kenya. He's become the first human in history to run a marathon in under 2 hours. Oh my God, I haven't run an inch today and I just need to get my breath back. That is absolutely stupendous.
A happy man to make history, to change how people think, and actually show the sport is really a positive way whereby they can unify people and make the world future.
And tell me, the people who turned out today, the people of Vienna, people from all over the world, people who came from Kenya today for you, what do you say to the fans?
To say thank you, and I hope that their history is not mine alone. History is among all the citizens of Vienna, all over the world who came here today, who watched me in YouTube, in Facebook, who follow in Twitter, those who watch live in their televisions. Together we have made history.
Asante Sana. One last request, can I ask your autograph, please?
This year also saw a new addition for the royal family, with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex welcoming their son Archie into the world. We also caught up with a global icon and had some fun on set.
The Duchess of Sussex has gone into labour. Prince Harry is by her side.
Prince Harry has announced that his wife, the Duchess of Sussex, has given birth to a baby boy.
Prince Harry could not have looked any happier. A beaming new dad who personally wanted to tell the world about his new son.
I'm very excited to announce that Meghan and myself had a baby boy early this morning, a very healthy boy. Mother and baby are doing incredibly well. It's been the most amazing experience I could ever possibly imagine. How any woman does what they do is beyond comprehension, but we're both absolutely thrilled and so grateful to all the love and support from everybody out there. It's been amazing, so we just wanted to share this with everybody.
The excitement in Windsor is mounting as royal fans wait to see the new arrival for the very first time.
Buckingham Palace rounding out the birth of a newly born royal baby boy.
As you can see, the champagne has already been opened. There have been corks flying. Oh no, I think we could be in the target line for getting a cork in the eye, but let's try and grab a quick word before we are impaled. Wonderful news that you said.
Fantastic news! It is so wonderful. We've waited for ages. I've been bubbling all week. I'm like that bottle of champagne.
Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor was introduced to the world today by his proud parents, Prince Harry and the Duchess of Sussex.
It's magic. It's pretty amazing, and I mean, I have the two best guys in the world, so I'm really happy.
It's only been, what, 2.5 days, 3 days?
Yeah.
But we're just so thrilled to have our own little bundle of joy and to be able to spend some precious times with him as he slowly starts to grow up.
Now, she's the golden girl of country, famous for her enormous hair, glamorous outfits and catchy music that was way ahead of its time. Dolly Parton's in town to promote the London debut of the hit musical 9 to 5, and I caught up with my music idol. Well, Dolly, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you.
Well, thank you.
How are you feeling about 9 to 5 musical hitting the London stage?
Well, I'm feeling excited more than anything. I cannot wait to see all the new cast up there doing all the songs that I've written for the play.
And it's almost 40 years since the film came out.
I know.
Are you surprised that it still resonates with so many people?
It's just like it won't die. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Because 9 to 5, as you know, we did that in '79. It came out in '80. And that was part of my deal, was that I would write the theme song. And you hope for the best. You hope you get a good song.
When you did write that song back in the '70s, 40 years on, are women where you thought they would be 40 years on? Or do you think there's still a long way to go?
Well, I think there's going to always be a long way to go. It's just a work in progress, as life itself is, but especially women in the workplace.
When you look back over your life, you know, 26 number ones, the most decorated country music star, you know, you're an absolute icon, but also your literacy project and the money that you've pumped back into Pigeon Forge with Dolly World. What do you think you'll be most proud of?
Well, I'm proud of all of it, I have to honestly say, because you never know when you start out how you're going to be known or thought of when you're older. You hope for the best. But I'm really proud of the Imagination Library, the project that I've done where we give books to children. But I've been very proud of everything that I've accomplished, to be in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, because my songwriting is very important. But I won't mind being known as the book lady, but I want to be known for my music as well, and to have left something great in the world that wasn't there before I came along.
Now, it's not often that our guests get away with running around our studio and licking the glass, but we'll forgive little Isla and Jemima Marine. Before they were born, the twins were diagnosed with a rare blood imbalance, which gave them just a 5% chance of survival. The girls and their parents came in for a chat and a play.
This is Isla, that's Jemima.
That's you over there. If they want to wander around, it's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it while we're having a chat. That was impressive. That was impressive.
And
it's okay, Dad. I'm sure she'll be fine.
She's off.
I knew that was going to happen. You are going to be a handful, aren't you?
She is.
Yeah. Fantastic. Maybe we'll try and retrieve the children as well. I'm sure you'd like them back before they're 18. Off she goes. I'm sure that's not true. We'll see you in just a second.